Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 13 of the Spring Craft Countdown, where I'm sharing a brand new spring themed craft project to make with your Cricut every day for 14 days. Today's project is something a little bit out of the ordinary and something very functional. Today we are making a fully working clock with a beautiful spring woodland scene. I'll show you how to perfectly size the clock design so that it fits your mechanism exactly, and then how to put it all together to make sure it all works perfectly to tell you the time. If you don't have a clock mechanism, or if you'd rather make it a little bit simpler, I've also included a layered cardstock version of the same spring forest scene, so you can still make this project even if you don't quite fancy having a go at the entire clock. Let's get started. This project is part of the 2026 Spring Craft Countdown. Download the cut files for free for the first 24 hours after this video goes live using the links in the video description or by visiting craftwithsarah.com/spring26. After 24 hours, the cut files for this project can be purchased from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 files. Or get the entire Spring Craft Countdown plus 35 extra bonus files from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 bundle. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into your cutting machine software. For instructions on how to do this, visit craftwithsarah.com/help and choose Cricut, Silhouette or Scan and Cut. Within there are dedicated help guides on topics such as how to upload SVGs, how to modify them to make custom projects, framing tips, and how to cut cardstock with your type of cutting machine. If you have any questions, email hello@craftwithsarah.com. Now, on with today's project. To make your fully functional clock, you'll need cardstock in all of the colours of the design. Or if you're just doing the layered design version without the clock, you'll need the same thing. So cardstock to match all the colours. You'll need some craft glue. I'm using Barely Art glue, but I also like Collal. I like these glues because they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. To add dimension between the layers, which is what makes it so beautifully thick, you can see all of that lovely shadowing in there, you'll need some foam squares. The ones I'm using are from Dot and Dab, but any will do. Now I'm actually using ones that are bigger than this, but I didn't have any new ones in the packaging to show you. So these ones are 5 by 5 millimeters and 3 millimeters thick. The ones I'm actually using are 10 by 10 millimeters in size, and it's only 2 millimeters thick. Don't use 3 millimeters thick, they'll be too big and your clock will end up too tall. So 2 millimeters thick and a little bit bigger is better for this because it's such a big project. I just wanted to show you at least a little bit of what it looks like in the packaging, even though that's not quite the right one. A scoring wheel or stylus for your Cricut machine is very helpful, and of course you'll need the clock mechanism. The type of clock mechanism that you choose is important for this project. Here's a picture on the screen of the exact one that I bought from Amazon. I'll also add the link in the description. These are the measurements of the clock mechanism that I purchased, and this is what the clock has been designed to fit. I did buy 3 different mechanisms off of Amazon, 3 completely random ones, just to see what the sizes were like. And all of the mechanisms were the same size. So I'm hoping that that means they are kind of a standard size, and that even if you can't get the exact one I'm using, especially if you're outside of the UK, then any one that you get will be kind of the sizes that you can see on the screen now. Here's an example of 2 different clocks. This is the one that I'm using, and it's got a nice tall bit which is going to allow all of our layers of the clock with our foam squares to fit in nicely. And this bit, the outside mechanism, is perfectly square. This is an example of one that wouldn't be very good for making this project. It's got a moulded plastic hook on it, which means that it won't fit into our paper design because it won't be able to go over this hook part. And also, the bit that has the hands on it is very thin. If we compare it to this one is a lot taller than this one. If yours looks more like this one, you'd probably have to glue your layers of cardstock together and not use any foam squares, because if you use the foam squares, it's going to be too tall to fit on that little bit of gold. Check the packaging within your clock mechanism to see if you have instructions on the order in which to put everything together, because yours might have slightly different bits depending on what you've bought. If it does come with a metal hook that you can slide onto the mechanism, I recommend leaving that off, because we've included a cardstock hook on the back of the clock to make sure that everything is still going to fit. For mine, I have a washer which should go on before the clock. So if that's also the case for you, put that washer on first. So here's my mechanism. I've got the washer. I'm going to slide that over the top, pushing it all the way to the bottom before I add any of the cardstock pieces. The download folder for this project comes with the clock version and a layered design version for if you would rather just make it as it is without adding the clock mechanism. This is what the layered cardstock project looks like, so you can see it doesn't have the hole in the middle for the clock hands and it doesn't have the numbers around the edge. And it's made up of all of these pieces. The download folder also includes an assembly guide to show you how to put all the layers together and which order for them all to go in once it's cut out. For this video though, we're going to focus on the clock version, so let's take a look at that. This is what the clock design loads in at. So we've got the main clock bit and then some extra pieces underneath. These make the border to go around the edge to make all the edges neat, and also the hanging bit on the back to allow you to hang your clock on the wall. It's important that this is cut at the exact size we've designed it at so that it will fit the clock mechanism that we've recommended. So the design should load in at 14 inches wide and 23 inches tall. You can click it and check along the top. If yours is different, size it to match those measurements. Then ungroup the layers by pressing the ungroup button at the top of the layers panel. Click to select that rectangle with the size information on it and then delete it, because you don't want to cut that out by mistake. This project requires 12 by 12 inch cardstock because the largest piece is almost 11.5 by 11.5. Again, this project is not good for resizing, otherwise it won't fit the clock mechanism. Therefore, this particular project is only suitable for the Explore and Maker series of Cricut machines, not the Joy, Joy 2 or Joy Extra. There are some score lines to format before this is ready to cut out. Scroll down to the bottom of the design and you've got these three pieces that make up the hanging section. Click on one of those and in the layers panel you see this is selected a group. You know this because you've got a little chevron arrow on the left hand side. Click to open up the group and then click the top layer within there that looks like horizontal lines. Under the operations drop down on the top menu, change it to score. Oh, I just missed score. There we go. Then click to select the group. So I'll do it over here. So click the name and now you see I've got the score line and the base bit selected. Press attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut to do the scoring on that particular bit of card. Then do the same for the bit underneath. And then also the bit on the right hand side, the larger piece here. Those are the only three parts in the whole design that need to be set to score. This would then be ready to cut out, but what I recommend doing before you cut the whole thing is just do two of the pieces to make sure it's going to fit onto your clock mechanism. So I recommend cutting this part first and also the layer that comes up near the bottom that looks like a blue circle with just a hole in the middle. So there's two blue circles near the bottom of the layer. Click on the one that's above that very bottom one and use your arrow keys on your keyboard with the shift key held down to move it over to the side. And then drag a box around everything else, group it and hide it, and then just cut out these two pieces first, and then we can check that the clock fits before doing everything else. Here's this piece cut out so I can check my clock is going to fit. So what you would do after cutting out this bit is just make sure that your clock mechanism will fit through the hole. You can see it's a snug fit, it's tight, I had to sort of push it on there, but it goes in there without warping or distorting the card. If your clock mechanism is a little bit smaller and it goes over more easily and maybe you've got a little bit of a gap, that should still be fine. However, if it is bigger, if your clock mechanism is bigger than the hole and you can't get this over, then you'll need to make the hole bigger in Design Space. In order to not slow down this video for what is hopefully going to be just a rare event that the clock is too big, I'll show that at the very end. So if you are looking for the resizing instructions, skip to the end of this video. And then I've also done this piece here to check the hole in the middle. And this will be tight to push over. It's not going to be an easy fit. I had to push that on there. But you can see that fitted in there nicely. It's going to go all the way through. Again, if your hole is a little bit bigger than the clock, that's okay. But if you really can't get your mechanism through the hole, then you will need to resize the hole on every single layer, which will be a bit of a task. Again, I'll show that at the very end of this video, just in case you need it. We're going to start by taking this piece with the cross in the middle. There's a little triangle on one of the sides. It looks like that in between the tabs in here. That is going to be pointing upwards where the 12 is on the clock. Take your mechanism, and if it has a washer to go on first, put that on, and then make sure you've got it the right way up. We're going to put this bit over and push it all the way down to the bottom, as far down as it can go. Eventually, we're going to snip off these little bits in the middle and push this over the mechanism to hold the mechanism securely in place. So otherwise, it will move around like this and your clock will not tell the correct time. The reason that we've got this cross bit is so that we can line up exactly over the middle part of the clock. It makes it much easier. The next bit to go on is the plain blue circle, and this also has a triangle at the top to show you the top bit. For this clock, these triangles are the most important bit, along with the middle. If your middles and your triangles line up, everything else will be okay. This will go on with foam squares. I've already added my foam squares to the back here. I've put a ring around the edge and then one kind of in the middle. Because this is going on top of here, don't put any right around the hole because otherwise it will just stick to the bits that we're about to try and cut off. So line it up as close as you can. It will wiggle about, that's okay, we can sort that out in a minute. The important thing is that we've got this perfectly lined in the middle because it's gone over the gold bit in the clock. And we're going to line up the triangles. So first things first, get it over the middle. Don't put any foam squares against that bottom bit yet. We're not sticking, we're just getting that over there. Then we'll line up the triangles. So we need those triangles to be absolutely 100% lined up on top of each other. And it's going to be really hard to show you because they are very small. But now I've got both of those lined up exactly. So now I know my triangles are lined up. I know my middles are lined up because they're both over here. And then I can gently lie the rest of this piece down. And then get it all stuck. You can take it off at this point because now we know we've started off the alignment correctly. I'll turn it round and then we're going to snip out the middle bit. Take some scissors and cut along the 4 bits. I know it might seem a bit weird why we included this, but it made it so much easier to get the first 2 bits lined up in the middle. Without this, you didn't have the 2 middle bits joining over here because there would be nothing here to hold the first one in place, and it was just really difficult to line up. Okay, so now we've got that, we can put it back on the clock. We'll assemble the rest of it on the clock. Push it all the way down to the bottom and then it will hold this mechanism a little bit in place over the back. If you want to make sure it's even sturdier, at this point you could add some foam squares in the hole. Make sure it lines up exactly in there so we know it's straight, because our clock is the same size pretty much as that hole. There we go, and now we know our triangle is directly where that 12 is. We know this is exactly in the middle. It's held on there with those foam squares, so it's not going anywhere. And now that is an excellent base for building up the rest of the clock. Now we're going to build up the rest of the layers of the clock to make up the forest scene and adding all the numbers. And we're going to do it on the mechanism with every single layer. Don't be tempted to put this together all separate and then try and put it on, because chances are your holes in the middle will not all be perfectly aligned without having that to go over. And if your holes aren't aligned, it is not going to fit when you get to the end. Next up is the yellow bit, which will be glued on. Alright, so remember we've got our triangle and our circle. First up, put that circle on, push it all the way down to the bottom, and then make sure your triangles line up. I just dropped that down before getting it in place, which was really silly because now my glue's going to be visible in the sky. I'll try not to do that for the other ones. And then we can push that down. Building it on the mechanism does make it a little bit tricky to get it all stuck, but it's worth that slight inconvenience to make sure everything lines up. Next up is this dark green layer for the back mountains, and this one is also glued. I'll try and do this neater this time. Okay, middle over, push all the way to the bottom, and then get the triangle lined up before I try and drop the rest of it down. If you use double-sided sticky tape instead of glue, it might be a little bit neater. But actually that one turned out much better. I didn't smush my glue out on there. So my triangles are lined up, that's all good. Next is this piece, and this is another foam square layer. Here are my foam squares. I cut some smaller to go in the branches and the owl because I thought it was going to be quite important to have them come out at a good height, the rest of everything else. And if there was nothing in there, you risk those bits of cardstock dipping downwards and touching up against the bit underneath rather than having that same level of depth. Okay, so I think this will be easier than the glue bits. So put it on, push all the way down, and then wiggle round till we get it lined up. As we go on, there's a bit more to line it up against, so you've still got that triangle, but you can also see when it's in the right place because the rest of the picture will start lining up. There we go. Get that pushed down. Next is the blue for the river, and this will be done with foam squares. And then on top of that will be the green bit, this bit here, which then shows you the shape of the river, like that. And the green bit will be glued. So we're foaming the blue and then gluing the green. Here are all my foam squares on the blue, and once again I cut them smaller to go in all of those bits in the middle. Push that on all the way down. And then line it up. Check that triangle. That is all good. And I've already added all my glue on here, so we can do this one too. Could line that up before pushing it down. Let's try that. It's getting a little harder to put on the middle the more layers we get added on. There. The rest of the layers that make up the forest scene will all be glued now. And we're starting off next with the darker green. Next up is the brown for the trees, also to glue. If you're watching this and wondering why it looks like I'm finding it really difficult to get my glue out, it's because my bottle's very nearly empty. I am trying to squeeze the last little dregs from it. Normally it comes out really easily. This one's a little tricky because the branch is sort of hanging. It's going to try and touch itself down against the green. We want to try and make sure it doesn't drag around anywhere we don't want it to go. I've just realised I should have added my owl tail on before putting that brown bit on. Well, that glue is still wet. Let's do that. In my head I had it that all of the little pieces didn't go on until the end, but we need that tail of the owl, so let's find that. Okay, so that's this bit, that whole size of the owl. That's going to glue on. We'll zoom in a bit now. We've gone from very big to very small all of a sudden. Okay, so that's going to go on the dark green. There we go. And that makes up his tail colour. So you just see the little tiny bit at the bottom. You'll have the assembly guide to be working off of when you do it, so you won't make that mistake. Might as well get all these other little bits out. Now I'm here, so I'm going to do that, get all my little bits ready for the next step, and then glue on my final green bit. Now this one doesn't go over the middle, so it's a little bit easier. You just need to line it up, and once again make sure your triangles are nicely lined up at the top. Next up, let's do some of the gluing of the little pieces. We'll start with the trees in the background. These have all got a brown bit, which is the bottom, and then a green bit to go on top. There are 4 in total. They're all different sizes, so make sure you match them up. Then there's the darker green bits to go on top. Again, glue all of these and make sure you've got the right ones on each tree. The next bit for the owl is this brown bit. We're gluing all of these on. It seems a bit odd putting the same colour on the same colour, but it's so that we can see the edges better. Then we've got the black bit of the owl. It's quite teeny tiny, so be careful with it. Then the white part of the owl. Then the orange. And finally, the light brown. Yeah, look how cute he is. We've got a sun, a little orange bit to go against here. We need to slide it under the other layers a little bit to fit in. And then 2 ladybirds to go on the tree. Start with the white pieces. It doesn't matter too much where you put them. I'm going to randomly place them. I'm not adding foam squares for these because I don't want the clock hands to catch on them. Then it's the black bits of the ladybirds with the little holes in them for the eyes. And then the red bits. And these are very small, so be careful adding your glue. That's what it looks like. We've also got a bumblebee to go over here. Start with the white piece, then the yellow, and then the black. And then 2 butterflies. I'm going to position one first so that I know the other one's going to fit. I'll go roughly about there. One is bigger than the other, so bear that in mind in a moment when you're sticking on the black detail pieces. Make sure the right piece goes on the right butterfly. Okay. And then the detail bits. That's our spring forest scene done. Now I need to add the numbers around the edge of the clock. For adding the numbers, first up we've got the blue base piece, and you can either use foam squares or glue. A good guide is to take a look at how much space you've got left on your ridged area of the clock mechanism. If you've got less than the height of foam squares, glue your edging, otherwise your hands might catch on it. I've got quite a lot of space left in mine though, so I can get away with adding the foam squares. So once again, we're going to get our little bit lined up. That's the only bit we've got to worry about for this one. Gently drop down. I haven't quite got that in place, so let's try again. That's looking better. So push down to stick. Then we've got this bit to glue on. Don't put any glue in the tabs that go off the side. Try and get some glue in all the little bits in the middle of the numbers so that the hands again don't catch on them. Line it up. Obviously this one's important to line up because if your numbers are in the wrong place, you're going to find it a little bit tricky to know how to tell the time. Okay, it goes there. So you've got the thinnest bit of the darker blue showing around the middle. Then go round and tuck all of the tabs over, both on the front and the back, like that. These will be used to do our edging on the next step. Next up, we're going to fold all the tabs in along the side. I've already done a couple to show you. You can glue them, but it's a lot easier to use double-sided tape. If you try gluing them, you'll probably end up having to hold each one in place until the glue dries, and you'll be there for a really long time. Alternatively, you could use some masking tape or washi tape over each one as you put the glue on to help hold it in place until it dries. So what we're going to do is fold the back tab over and then the front one over that and stick them both down as you go and sort of try and pull them a little bit tight. If your back bits are too long and go all the way over the front, cut them a little bit shorter with scissors. That might happen if your foam squares are a little bit thinner than the ones I've used, or if you've glued some of the layers instead of using the foam squares. You just want to make sure they're not going to be visible from the front. So what I'm going to do is get my double-sided tape, go over the front bit, so it's the back tab, but the bit facing the front, and then glue that, well, stick, onto my edges. So don't squish it all together, otherwise you'll take out the effect of the foam squares, but we're just pushing it on over there, and then a bit more tape on top, and then fold that one down. It doesn't matter if it ends up messy and you can still see some of the tape, because that will be all covered over with the strips that go around the edge. I'm going to carry on and get all of my tabs stuck down, and then we'll do the strips. My tabs are now all stuck down, although some of them seem to be doing their very best to come apart from each other, but that's okay, we can sort that out when we add the strips around the side. This is feeling really nice and sturdy now. Next up, we'll glue this around the edge. It overlaps a little bit, so the yellow is a little bit bigger than the blue in order to hide the edges of those tabs. So you can either glue on the back of here and just make sure that you don't go all the way to the very outer edge, or you can add a thin line of glue around the edge of your clock, whichever you feel the most comfortable with. There's nothing to line up this time. In fact, this is going to cover up all of those triangles along the top so we can't see them anymore. I've got that roughly in place, then turn it over and wiggle it about a bit so you've got an even-ish amount of yellow going over all of the sides. And then turn it over. Make sure it's stuck down neatly. Okay, nearly there. Just the strips to go. Okay, so these are going to go over all of the tabs. Once again, you can either glue them or use double-sided tape. Seeing as my tape seems to be not doing a very good job of being stuck, I'm going to go for glue. Do a few at a time. Get one of your strips and start up where you've got the triangle. We'll go one side of that. Push your strip up against the yellow, like that. Tuck it round on top of all the tabs. Again, you probably need to hold it in place until it dries. It's going to want to come unstuck because it's not going to want to stick at this angle. So I'll wait for this one to dry. Then I'll add glue along the next few and add the next strip here, and then keep going until all of them are on there. I've now added all of the edging. So you see how that finishes it off so nicely to hide all of the layers in where all the foam squares were showing on the edges. It's okay if it doesn't look like the neatest thing ever from the back, because it will be hung up on the wall. You won't see that. And if you end up with some extra strips, that's okay. I left it so that you can choose how much overlap you want to do on each one. I just did about 1 centimetre, so I had some left over, and I cut my last bit shorter because I had quite a lot left at the end. And that is all of the edging done. Our clock's nearly there. We've just got to add the ability to hang it up and then the hands. Now let's give our clock the ability to be hung up. And we're going to go with this piece, and this will go onto the back using foam squares. There's a score line, well, 2 score lines. I'm going to fold backwards along the bottom one and then fold forwards so you end up with this, and then your foam squares will go on the back. Don't add any foam on the bits above the score line, just going around the edges of the square. Oh, I actually folded that the wrong way. I want them exactly the opposite of that. So it should bend outwards like that, and then that one upwards. and then slide it over. So this bit will be the bit that ends up going over a hook or a nail in the wall. We need to make it stronger, so take these two pieces and fold it the right way this time. There, and then that one up that way, and then glue that one over the top, and then when you've done that, do exactly the same with the other one, and then that will form a really nice sturdy hanging part for your clock. It's the last step, adding the hands to the middle of the clock. This will vary a bit depending on what mechanism you bought. You might find you've got some instructions in there, which is helpful. For mine, I've got a little metal nut to go on first, then a fastening unit. I'll put that on and screw it down so it goes not 100% tight that you'd never be able to get it off again, but it should go so that it doesn't easily turn anymore. And that will help hold everything in place. Then I've got my smallest hand. Push that on as far as it goes. Then the next one. Balance on there. So they have a little bit of gap between them, which is how they pass over each other. And then this one's got a second hand, which is connected to a little bit that will stick in the top. Not quite sure how hard I have to push that in. I think that should be enough. Okay, let's line them up, all at 12. Put a battery in. And hope that it starts working. This is a very tight fit for that battery. Okay, battery in. My second hand is moving. So that's great. I can just set it to the current time, which is 7:26. Oh, this is going to take a while. 7:26-ish. If you're finding that your handles aren't quite going over each other, try just gently bending the edges back just the tiniest bit. You might find that they start going down a bit. You just need to make sure there's enough clearance on all of them. And that's it. Oh, wrong one, meant to zoom out. Here we go. Look at it working. You've got the second hand going around. You've got it telling the time beautifully. You've got the ability to hang it up. And there we go. Completely working, functional clock with beautiful edges, all made with a Cricut machine. If you do need to resize the clock to fit your mechanism, here's how to do that. I'm doing this at the end of the video because I really do recommend purchasing a clock that fits the sizes that I showed at the beginning. Resizing it is not a simple process and will require quite a bit of work in Cricut Design Space. So first up, we'll take a look at how to resize if your clock mechanism doesn't fit into the square gap that we did as the tester part in part 3 of this video. So what you would need to do is get this bit here and also the main bit here. These are the two that have the outline of the square which forms the mechanism. So what you would do is measure your mechanism first and then go into shapes, choose a square and make this the size of your mechanism. So let's just pretend, for instance, mine's a little bit bigger. Let's go 2.6. So a little bit bigger than what it was originally. Zoom in a bit. And first up, we'll take this piece and go arrange, bring to front, and then position it over here so that the squares line up. Use your arrow keys to get it super accurate. Take your new square and change it under the operations menu to a guide. That changes it to an outline. And then you would place it over here and line it up as close as possible so that there's an even gap around the existing square on those other designs. That looks pretty accurate there. I used to go down just the slightest bit. And we'll bring that to the front so we can see. There we go. Then go into shapes again, choose another square, and this time we'll make it another colour so we can see more easily. And I'm going to make an extension of the cross bits along here. You might need to zoom in quite a lot, and it needs to untick the padlock box so that I can resize the width and the height separate. It needs to come so that it doesn't cover the middle hole, and then we can copy and paste. Don't like that now when you copy and paste in Design Space it completely loses your position on the page. It used to keep it, so we didn't have to do all this moving about that I'm doing now. One there. Maybe if I duplicate, there we go, that didn't move it so much. I rotate it round with the Shift key held down so you can get it exactly 90 degrees. And then one more. And then for now, let's hide them. We need to cut our largest square out of the two bits we've got. So first, change it back to a basic cut, and we want to make a copy in place. To do that, press the Alt key on a Windows computer or Option on a Mac, and then that will change your cursor to get a little plus icon. Click and that will make a copy in exactly the same place. Then hide one of them. Then we're going to hide that top bit, so we've just got our bottom bit here. Turn on the square, select both of these and press Slice, and that will cut out the square. So we've now got these slice results layers. You can delete the black bits, and now we've ended up with this and this. You can turn your lines back on, your squares here. Then we need to grab this circle bit in the middle. So we'll go into Shapes and get a circle. Position that over the blue so that it's got all the reds that it's touching, and then we'll slice that out of the remaining blue bit. So now we've got the circle left. Now see if you need to make any of your lines bigger, which I do. It's not letting me because I need to zoom in more. And these need to go over where our new hole is. These bits are important because they're a guide that helps line it up to make sure our clock's gonna all definitely be facing the right way. It doesn't matter if it's not quite lined up here, the hole is the important bit. Make sure you don't move the hole. Then we can select all of these bits and go combine and weld to join them together. So now we've ended up with this looking like it did to begin with, except the hole, the square, is bigger. Hide that one, turn these ones back on. If you've already done the scoreline formatting, you'll need to detach them and then ungroup the layer. Select the blue and your square and slice, and delete the slice results. So now you've ended up with a bigger hole in the middle. Then do your score lines and attach. And that would be resized now for you to test cut. You only really need to test cut this one to start with, which is a much smaller piece rather than doing this big one as well. So cut this one, see if it fits. If your hole's a little bit big now, that's okay. But that's the only two pieces that you'll need to change if you're just making the square hole a bit bigger to fit your mechanism. If, on the other hand, you are making the middle hole bigger because your clock bit that you add all the layers onto doesn't fit through the circle hole. That is more difficult because that involves changing every single layer pretty much, which is a lot more effort. We can do it. It's just a little bit of a mission. So first up, let's look down the clock and hide everything that doesn't have a circle. Then we know a little bit easier what we're working with. I'm hiding all of the butterflies and ladybirds and all of those little pieces. The outside of the clock with the numbers doesn't have the numbers, so we can hide all of this. Sorry, it doesn't have the holes, not the numbers. And then stop when you get to the brown, but we can also take off the little pieces of the trees and the owl. There we go. So now we're sort of left with just the big pieces with a hole in the middle. If you've moved things about like I have, we'll need to put them back in place. Let's see if we can select these and go align center and then align. It's not going to line that one up. That's the only problem because it's bigger. Everything else would work. If we zoom in. So I've aligned all of these, but not this one. I'll do that one separately at the end. I think that'd be easier. So you want to make sure just when you're working on it that all your holes are lined up as you start. There isn't a lot of room in the gaps of card around here, so we can't just make the circle bigger because then this bit would be so narrow, this brown bit around the edge, that it would probably tear when you try and put it on the clock. So what you would need to do is make a circle, and we'll change it to a guide and make this slightly larger than the one that's on there. And then we'll make another one, and this would be the size that you think the hole needs to be in your clock. It's hard to see these guidelines. So let's say we're making it a little bit bigger. Select both of your circles and go align center, and then we'll change them back to basic cut. So this is sort of what we've ended up with, a bigger one and a smaller one. Delete the middle of the black one. So now we've got these two shapes, the black ring and the circle in the middle. At this point, cut the black ring, just that bit, and check that this is now going to fit the middle of your clock. And if it is too big and it's not a really tight fit, make your hole smaller. Do it again, but with a slightly smaller bit in the middle. If it's still too small, then go back into Design Space, make it a little bit bigger, test cut it again. You don't want to do all the changes we're about to do and then find it still doesn't fit. Okay, so now begins the kind of laborious part of getting this on every single layer. So what we can do is start by grouping everything. That just makes it go to the top of the layers panel so we can see it a bit easier. Then we'll ungroup again. So if we name these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 layers we'll need to do, and also this one. We'll leave that till the end. We'll hide the top ones till we've just got number 1. Now for this one, it's a little bit simpler because we're at the very bottom. There's no decorations on here. So all we'd need is to slice our new middle bit, the yellow bit, out of the base. Click on your yellow bit, and it's important that you don't lose this shape. So we'll make a copy in place by pressing Alt or Option and clicking again, and hide one of them. Drag the one that's remaining so it's above that layer 1. Click both of them, and then slice, or you can do combine and subtract, it doesn't matter. Then delete the slice results. Now you're left with your base bit with a bigger hole in the middle. And then we can rename that back to 1, and we'll put 1, done, so we know we've done that one. Then number 2 would be exactly the same because we've got nothing here that we need to worry about. So that would be the same. 3 would be the same. 4, we're looking at it maybe being the same. It depends how big your hole is. For me, that would be okay because there's still enough cardstock here that won't be really narrow and hard to put on. So that would be the same. But now once we get to 5, there's not a lot of space above here. So at this point, I'm going to need both of my new circles. I'll duplicate them so we don't lose the originals. Drag these down onto 5. First up, select the yellow and your base, slice it off, delete those slice results. Then turn on the frame that we made and drag it above. Make the frame bit the same color as the layer, and then select both of them and combine and weld. That joins our new bigger frame to make sure we've still got a sturdy amount of cardstock around the hole. And that would be 5 done. And then that's how the rest of them will all need to be done. I'll show it to you one more time on this final layer. So I'll turn these back on, duplicate them in place, and then first up, slice the yellow out of the brown, then turn on our bigger bit, make it brown, select the layer and that bit and combine and weld. So then that's given us our bigger circle. And I did my original, not my backup, but that doesn't matter. I've still got it. Okay, so you would do that for all of the layers that have the hole in the middle. And then we would come back to this one. I'll turn our shapes back on. I'll move them over here. Drag a box around all of these and align center to put the circles in the middle. And then it's the same thing. So we're slicing out the little circle, delete those slice results, and then make that one the same size there. Select both of them, combine and weld. So now we've got the bigger hole in the middle of that one as well. And that is how to resize all of the layers if you need to make your mechanism hole bigger or the hole in the middle of the clock bigger. Hopefully you won't need this bit because, as I said, it is fairly laborious to do and will be a lot of trial and error to make sure your sizes are exactly right. But I just thought it would be good to put this at the end of the video in case it's helpful. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to make a springtime clock with your Cricut machine or the matching layered design if you want to keep things a little bit simpler. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for layered smart papercraft projects and Cricut SVGs. I hope to see you again tomorrow for day 14 of the Springcraft Countdown, but for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!